So I'm Miss Alyssa. I'm the director of East Campus, for those who don't know me. And you'll hear from me a little bit later, but right now I would like to introduce Miss Caley Kukla. Miss Caley is the founder of Play with Purpose, and so she's really big in the community in terms of helping young children regulate social emotional skills. She helps families learn how to navigate appropriate responses to children's behavior. So, and she's also one of our families this year as well. So, without further ado, Miss Caley, please come on up. The last workshop we did with Miss Caley ended up bringing 100 people to this very room. So we're glad to have her back.
Right now. But they did tell me there would be a panel discussion, and so now I'm up here by myself. So I'm the panel, I guess. Hey guys, Miss Alyssa called and asked me to come talk a little bit about, because what I specialize in really is that social emotional foundation. And what I think is really important to note is that when we look at early childhood, there's a big push for social emotional education. And we forget how important it is. Oftentimes I find people forget how important it is once we get to the upper grades. And so my job tonight is, while I really work with 8 and under, that's my niche, that's what I love. Really, this is just human behavior science. Like, this is the foundation upon which we can set everyone up for success. So I get asked a lot, does this work on my spouse? I'm like, yeah, it does. It's good. It's really good stuff. So something I noted, and what I really prioritized when I was looking for a school for my boys, I have 2 boys. So Ethan will be 5 in a couple weeks, and Eli is newly 2. So, and they are a spirited bunch. And what I was really looking for was that social emotional piece. I go into a lot of preschools on a weekly basis, from West Palm up to Stewart. So I'm in and out of probably 3 to 5 schools a week. And I see a big push for this academic skills. Do they know their letters? Do they know their letter sounds? Do they know their numbers? Do they know their colors? Even one-to-one correspondence, there's all these check boxes we're trying to get it all in. And then what I see really fall by the wayside is this social emotional piece. There might be posters hanging on the wall of happy faces and sad faces and worried faces, right? There might be those markers, but when it comes to creating a really safe, nurturing environment, focusing on that safety piece, which is so key to help kids learn, and the connection piece, there's just not as much of an emphasis on it. And what I felt when I walked into Turtle River, it was really quite crazy, is that they put EQ, the social emotional piece, on the same level as IQ, which are the academic standards. And the way I like to think about it and explain it to parents is, if you work out, or if you've ever played a sport, right? If you have a muscle imbalance, and those 2 muscles are supposed to be working together, and I think this is what Dr. Ted was really trying to circle, and they kept interrupting him. Let the man talk. Let him talk. But so I had a knee that was swelling a few months ago. It kept just filling up with fluid. It was super annoying because I like to work out. And I went to a PT, and what she said was like, look, your quad is really overdeveloped, and your hamstring not so much. So your quad is working a lot harder than it needs to, and it's pulling your kneecap over. And when that happens, you start getting fluid buildup, right? So my muscles were imbalanced. And so what happens when we push one up more important than the others is we get an unbalanced learner. And so then what happens is IQ is what we need to pass the test. It's what we need to get into the college. It's what we need to get the job, right? IQ looks really good on paper, and that is really important for the real world. EQ is what helps you apply the knowledge you learn in school to the real world. It's what helps you keep the job, because the people you work with like you, and you're actually contributing to your company, right? So And you feel like you're making a difference. You feel like you're creating that impact in whatever you're doing. So we need, as a society, and when I say we need as a society to put both on an equal playing field. They're both important, and we need to help work together. So how do we do that? And this is where I think Turtle River does an exceptional job from what I've seen. Ethan was sick all last week, high fever all last week. And the part that he cried about was not being able to come to school. I was like, honey, your fever's at 104. Like, let's worry about that first, right? But he really was heartbroken that he was missing school. He didn't even care about trick-or-treating. He didn't care about that with school. So what I love about that is that means that he feels really, really safe here. He was willing to come here feeling like junk, right? He felt like garbage, and he was willing to come here because he's like, I can just lay down in the safe place, Mom. I can just lay down. I'm like, no, honey, you can't lay down in a safe place and infect all your friends. No. So he feels really safe here, and he feels really connected. He wanted to come, and he wanted to spend time with his friends. And that tells me that foundation is really solid here. Just in the short 4 months he's been here, that's already been created. And then I think I was telling Miss Alyssa, it was really funny. I opened up the fridge the other day, and they're learning about the body now in Miss Bree's class. And he goes, oh, Mom, when I eat food, it goes down my esophagus and it goes in my stomach. Yeah. And that's about all your mom knows about digestion, so I'm just going to affirm that. So I had to look up the other digestive part so we could have a conversation about that. But that's what, he feels safe, he feels connected, and then he's learning. So they're in balance, and they're working together. And so that's a part of the brain integration that I'm going to spend some time out because I love talking about brain integration. And when we start talking about brain integration, we're really talking about self-regulation. So those are the skills that when the teacher sits down and she's like, look, traditional, because I go to these parent-teacher conferences all over in different schools, right? So, look, he has a really hard time sitting down and paying attention. That's self-regulation. Paying attention is a self-regulation skill, all right? And he has a hard time remembering steps when he's doing things. And I say boys because I have 2 boys, so it can be girls too. But she has a hard time paying attention and following along to what we're doing. He's standing too close to his friends. His friends say stop, and he still gets too close, right? These are all these skills, self-regulation skills that then become really important that make up the EQ, right? So how we develop those things is brain integration. In order for a kid to engage in those skills, those higher level skills, we need to make sure the safety is there. Because as a species, we scan for danger. So we're actually constantly scanning for threats. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm constantly like checking everybody. Okay, are you sitting there and like you're not going to come at me and jump at me like I see you. You're going to come right at me and jump at me. Thinking about it. No, that's not what it means. But it also can mean emotional safety too. So a part of that emotional safety piece is I feel safe enough to be vulnerable. We have to feel safe to be vulnerable. And what being vulnerable allows us to do is take risks. And real learning happens when we can take risks and when we fail. And we're not afraid of that failure. And I hadn't seen, like, spoiler alert, I hadn't seen that video in like 6 or 7 months. It's been a long time, so I don't remember things very well. So I didn't remember that. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, all of these kids are talking about creating and analyzing and synthesizing information and thinking outside the box and applying information. It's all learning by direct application, hands-on, whether you're 3 or 13. And what that allows us to do is, oh, well, I'm going to try this and it might not work. I have to feel safe enough to take that step to actually apply the information to then see if it's going to work, and it might not. And I might fail. And what I see with little kids is they'll take the risk because little kids are a free spirit, right? They don't necessarily have the weight of opinions and peer pressure on them yet, right? So they're a little more willing, depending on the temperament of the child, to take that step and take risks. When they get to a certain point, they start getting really aware of not just their parents' judgment, but their peers' judgment, right? That peer factor. So how do we counteract that as adults, right? We help them feel safe, and we help develop the theory of mind, so the ability to take different perspectives. Well, maybe she thought this was going to happen. What do you think is going to happen? That collaboration. Well, let's see. So it becomes this connection, this joint effort to then take that step out and be able to fail. And that's where we really learn. As an adult, right? I learn the most from my failures than when I succeed. And Albert Einstein had some quote that I can't remember, I'm not that eloquent about, or no, Thomas Edison. He failed like 93 times or 193 times or something like that, and the light bulb was 194th time or something crazy. I made up those numbers. So, but that's the whole point, is people who really are world changers take that step out and aren't afraid to fail. But in order to do that, that safety and connection is the foundation. So the other point that we were talking about too when I was speaking with Alyssa was when we feel safe enough to fail, a lot of times when I work with parents one-on-one, well, the real world isn't that nice, right? Like they're gonna let you know, and they're probably gonna come down hard. And when they're outside of this nice little bubble, the peers might push back, or your college professors aren't gonna give you warm fuzzies. Our college professors did, but a lot of college professors won't give you warm fuzzies, right? Your boss doesn't care, right? So I get that pushback. But here's what we found through, there was a study, are you guys familiar with the ACEs study and Dr. Nadine? Okay. Hey, we get to talk about ACEs. So ACEs is the Adverse Childhood Environmental Scale. And it's ACEs for short. And Dr. Nadine Burkhart did a TED Talk about it. And what they found, she didn't head up the study, but she's taken a lot of the information and run and changed her pediatric practice. And now she's the Surgeon General of California. So what they studied was childhood trauma. Trauma is when we have an adverse experience and we feel helpless. We're paralyzed. We cannot do anything about it, right? And what they found is when we experience trauma and we don't have a safety net, we don't feel safe, and there's no resiliency. People actually can't bounce back from that when they experience trauma. So what we learned from that is safety is really important, and kids can struggle, and they should, right? And so this is like the helicopter parent has now gotten this bad rap because we don't let our kids struggle. And that's true. Our kids absolutely need to struggle. But they also need a safe place to land, because that's where they're going to learn resiliency. That's when they're going to learn how to bounce back from things. They're going to get their confidence from that, and they're going to be able to go back out and try again. So a real world scene of this from a little kid, right? And I think middle school is like the hotbed for this kind of thing, because it's brutal. For adolescence, it's a brutal time in child development. But for little kids, what this would look like is my son Ethan came home from school, it was bedtime, and like things always come out at bedtime, right? It's quiet, they're processing things, it's calm, so things always come out, and he started sobbing, and I was like, what just happened? You know, and he's not like a sobber like this, and so I was like, so I just kind of sat there with him, and it all came out. My friends don't want to play with me, and he was having this struggle. I had no idea what was going on with friends at school. And so I said, okay, bud, well, what I figured out has happened is he likes to try and play with older girls. And he's a 4-year-old, yeah. So he's a 4-year-old little boy, and he wants to play with the 6-year-old girls. And so they're playing things that really aren't in keeping with the 4-year-old boy. And me, with my background, I'm like, okay, I got it. Like, good for the girls for, laying down the line, but he's really struggling. But what that struggle did, I'm not going to walk in and talk to Miss Bree and be like, hey, they need to be nice to him. He feels left out. No, I talked to Miss Bree. I said, look, just so you know, this is going on. But he had this safe place where he could relax, and it's not like he was turned off of going from school. He wanted to go back to school because he feels safe here. So he was struggling with this social dynamic, and because he feels safe and connected, he was able to work his way through it really independently. Did he need to have a good cry at home? Did I need to bring awareness to him, be like, hey, just keep a lookout? Yeah, but he was able to bounce back and be resilient because of the safety he has at home and the safety he has at school and how connected they are. So that was just like one little incident. And in middle school too, when kids, this peer pressure, now it really starts in like 4th grade. I mean, I think it gets more intense with each generation, but 3rd, 4th grade, this peer pressure really picks up. And so kids start referencing, hey, what is she doing? What does she think that I'm doing? What is this? If we don't have this community coming around them and building this safety net and creative thinking and problem solving. And so what this does then is when we have these soft skills, we're developing these social emotional soft skills of being able to struggle and bounce back and self-resiliency, is then the kids can move up, because that part of the brain is calm, they can move up into the higher order thinking skills, like synthesizing, analyzing. Comprehension's kind of down here, but it's necessary to get up here. So they start bridging that gap. And so what I think is really incredible that I've just noticed from being here for a short amount of time, but going in and out of schools, is that letting kids not only be who they are and cherishing that and being the role model as teachers and administrators, it's carried through with the kids. And that is what creates this opportunity for real learning. And real world application. They're not having to take the information and then go outside and try and figure out how it fits in. They're learning it while they're doing it, which is something that I took for granted. I thought was in all educational models until I started working in them and saw them, and it took me a long time to uncover this one. But I feel it's just really incredible. And so to turn it over to integrated curriculum, are you doing it? Is Stephanie?
Miss Stephanie's going to do it.
Stephanie's
I'm going to
doing
come
it.
out and then I'll introduce them.
So the last thing I wanted to say is this foundation that we're building, right? If the foundation is shaky, so if we're overdeveloping one muscle and we're putting it on an underdeveloped muscle, that foundation is shaky, something isn't going to transfer. But if we build it in this integrated model where the brain is coming online and we're building these foundational skills and the brain's learning how to work together, it lends itself really well to real world application, because we don't compartmentalize life. Right? Polynomials, I haven't heard that term. I was like, oh man, I just had flashbacks to algebra. I hated algebra, right? So like polynomials, no, but the real world application of that, right, is figuring out, okay, budget for this week, and like here's how much I have to work with and divide it by, right? That's the real world application. That's how these kids are learning through math through this curriculum, which is just super exciting. I'm thrilled to turn it over and hear more about integrated curriculum and probably tear up like I did for the both videos.
Thank you. Thank you.